down today's morning chant. The bell chant will be page 12, and this is the 5 mindfulness. The first mindfulness training, reverence for life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivating the inside of interbeing in compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world. True happiness. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal, not to possess anything that should belong to others, and I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering, that true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I'm aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment by simply remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and stop contributing to climate change. True love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I'm committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love, and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I would do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are four basic elements of true love, for our greater happiness and the greater happiness of others. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. Loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself among other people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully, using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and look deeply into my anger. I know the roots of anger can be found through right or wrong perceptions and lack of understanding, of the suffering in myself and any other person. I will speak and listen in a way that can help me and the other person to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain, and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform the anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. Nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I'm committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the four kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impression, volition, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, magazines, books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, or letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate interbeing and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth. And we bow. Please join me in noble silence until the beginning of service at 10 o'clock.
Invite the incense lighters to please come forward. And the incense gatha is in your chant book on page 2. And I invite you to chant along with myself. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Bow. And we bow. Morning. Wow, it's really a full house today. That's great. Thank you so much for coming in on this Sunday. Some courtesy announcements. We do have restrooms available here at the temple if it's your first time. How many people first time here? All right, great. That's great. 7 or 8 people. If you need to get up during the service, and feel free if you're uncomfortable sitting on the floor, there are some additional chairs over there on the right. You can get up to stretch, and you can get up to use the bathroom. Just walk to the back and then go across through those gray curtains. There's a bathroom there. Also, there's additional bathrooms downstairs. To my left, there's a doorway going downstairs. If you have children, there is an area down there for children to unwind with some toys and things. You can take them down there during the service if needed. So we'll be inviting you to participate in the services as you feel comfortable. So with bowing and chanting, we're going to tell you where things are and invite you to join in as you feel is comfortable. With the chanting, just chant loud enough so you can hear yourself, but not so loud enough that you can't hear the other people around you, because we're trying to all chant together mindfully. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand up and greet each other silently with bows. We're going to do our first chant, the 3 refuges. This is on stage 3 in your chant book. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community practice, realize harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindful breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning and to help a be free for one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. Next, we'll chant the Heart Sutra on the next page.
Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all others are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase or decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all delusive views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith and prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharma, the radiant, fearless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, 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 parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, parasamgate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Prajna, paramita, hridaya, sutra. You bow.
So I just ask you to stand for a moment. So this is the opportunity in our service where if you're comfortable, we have the chance to do some bows with 3 refuges. So the first chant was the refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And the idea is that we're just going to the Buddha as a guide, the Buddha's teachings as a way to live our life, and as the Sangha, the support for our life, as where we look for the answers, and then where we look for strength in our life where we encounter difficulties. So another way to, besides chanting that, another way to do that is to perform prostrations. So we'll do some deep bows. If you're comfortable doing that, I invite you to join me. And what that looks like is I will say, I go for refuge to Buddha, I go for refuge to Dharma, and I go for refuge to Sangha. So anybody who is comfortable, I invite you to join me in 3 bows. I go for refuge to Buddha. I go for refuge to Dharma. I go for refuge to Sangha. I invite everyone to sit down again. Good morning again. My name is Kunga Nyima. I'm a senior Dharma teaching monk here at the temple. Some of you may not have seen me in a while. I'm usually here about once a month. I live in St. Joe, Michigan. It's really great to see so many people here and so many new people. Thanks for coming. My talk today is called "This Food is a Gift." 2 weeks ago, when I was starting to think about what I wanted to talk about today, I talked to Upaya here about some suggestions, and he said, well, why don't you say something about Thanksgiving? So I like to structure my talks around some type of teaching that's already existing out there. So when I was thinking about Thanksgiving, I thought of Thich Nhat Hanh's Meal Gatha. And this is a little bit different Meal Gatha than the one we use here at the temple for retreats, and sometimes we use it at the potlucks. It's a little bit longer, but I did include a copy of this Meal Gatha inside of your chant books in the back of it. So if you open up your chant book, there's a little folder in the back. There should be the Gatha there. And I'd invite you all to chant it along with me to start. This food is a gift of the earth, the sky, numerous living beings, and much hard work. May we eat in mindfulness and gratitude and enjoy every bite. May we recognize and transform our unskillful mental formations, especially our greed, and learn to eat with moderation. May we keep our compassion alive by eating in such a way to reduce the suffering of living beings, preserve our planet, and reverse the process of global warming. We accept this food to nourish our sisterhood and our Sangha, and nourish our ideal of serving all beings. Thank you. So what I want to do in my talk today is sort of break the Gatha down line by line. The term Gatha is a Sanskrit word. It means a short verse or a song. And Thich Nhat Hanh uses them a lot to help us, reminds us how to use mindfulness in our day-to-day life. So he has different gathas he's written in his books about, washing the dishes or sweeping the floor or driving the car. Venerable Jingsu used one of these gathas. He talked about these gathas in his last preceptor meeting, and he actually asked the preceptors to write their own gatha about driving the car, because a lot of people lose their mindfulness when they're driving. Other people, they would blame it on other people, I guess, to say that the other people are causing them to lose their mindfulness, but really it's our own issue. So that's a good one to always think about. So the first line of the Gatha is, this food is a gift of the earth, the sky, numerous living beings, and much hard work. So it's a gift. Every Sunday we talk about dana and the importance of generosity. The generosity of giving here to the temple, but there's also the other side of being the recipient of generosity. The food that comes to us at our table is a gift of the universe. It's as Thich Nhat Hanh says, a gift of the earth and the sky. Without the earth, the food wouldn't have anything to grow in. Without the sky providing water and oxygen and sunlight, the food couldn't exist. In addition to those material resources, we can also think about the people who brought that food to us, all those groups of people. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We can think about the people who cultivated the food, people who harvested the food, the people who loaded the food up onto a truck, the people who brought it to the grocery store, all those things. Even if we plant our own food, we can still consider that, the tools we use to plant, the seeds, the things we need to use to prepare the food for eating, all those things came from other people. So those are all a gift to us. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about taking a piece of paper in a lot of his books. He says, take a piece of paper and look at it, and you can see the sun, you can see the earth, you can see all the materials that are used to create this piece of paper, and all the materials of the earth, and all the people that were involved in creating this piece of paper. And so we can do the same thing with our meal, with our Thanksgiving Day meal or any meal, we can do that. We can think about, who prepared this meal for us, the time and skill that it took for them to do that. We can talk about how the food came to be at the grocery store where we purchased it, who put it on the shelves, who drove the truck to deliver it to the store. We can think about the farm, we can think about the farmer who owns the land. We can think about the different workers, maybe migrant workers that planted the seed, that harvested the seed. We can think about the process that was used to get the seed onto the trucks and process it, the plants onto the trucks, and then bring it here. All those things, are part of that process. So all those things are things for us to be, to appreciate. So the next line is, may we eat in gratitude and mindfulness and enjoy every bite. So after we think about all the efforts that went into creating that meal for us, there is another way to think about gratitude as well. Just the idea that, this meal is even available for us in our home to eat when we're hungry. Many of us may not have experienced food scarcity, but, food scarcity is when you don't know where your next meal is coming from. The cupboards are empty. There's no cash in the bank, for you to purchase your meal from. According to the USDA, 47 million Americans, 1 in 7 people experienced food scarcity in 2023. So if we look around at our own temple, there might be a handful of people that have experienced food scarcity in their lifetime, a time when they maybe went hungry because there was no food available for them. So, another thing to appreciate is just that food exists there for you. Because of your karma, causes and conditions of your life, you happen to be at a point where food is easily accessible. The second part of that is bringing mindfulness to your eating. So when we do our retreats, we have a mindful lunch as part of the retreat. So what we do is we ask the participants to bring the same level of awareness to eating that they bring to mindful sitting or mindful walking. So in mindful sitting, you might be focusing on awareness of your breath or just awareness of your body and space. In mindful walking, you're maybe focused on the placement of each foot or how your body is moving through space. And then when you apply that to mindful eating, you're thinking about the process, all the different steps involved with eating and being very aware, maybe like ultra aware of that process. So at the participants, we give them something to read, sort of give them an idea about that. This is from, I think I got these ideas from Thich Nhat Hanh when I wrote this up. Participants are invited to bring their full attention to the eating process and the sensations that they are experiencing through all their senses. While eating, note the appearance of the food, the movement of cutting it up and bringing it to your mouth, the smell of each bite of food, its texture and taste as you chew it and swallow it. Thich Nhat Hanh recommends chewing each bite 30 times to really experience this activity. So we try and do that during our silent retreat, during the mealtime. We try and focus on that. We don't do any talking. We just put all our attention on eating. So at the end of every temple retreat, people will always talk about how great the food was, right? And how wonderful the food was. But it's not because we have the best chefs in the world, attending a retreat. It's the same food that you would get at any kind of potluck, with a variety of people. But the idea is that just being more mindful, being more careful, being more selective with our attention and our awareness is allowing us to enjoy the food more than if we hadn't done that. The next line is, may we recognize and transform our unwholesome mental formations, especially our greed, and learn to eat with moderation. So the next two sections of the Gatha talk about how we might use our meal and our eating to kind of do some internal transformations and also some external transformation in our world. When we talk about the three poisons in Tibetan, we talk about images of a pig for ignorance, and a snake for aggression. Well, a snake is for aggression, I believe, and then the rooster is for greed. So the idea is that this rooster or chicken going around constantly pecking at the ground, trying to get something to eat. That's all he's doing, is trying to eat. So this idea of greed is always trying to fill ourselves, satiate ourselves. You can imagine with, chickens, they're eating, little tiny specks of worms and seeds and insects that get out of the earth, how much it takes for them to fill up, right? They're bigger. So this idea that they have to be greedy all the time just to maintain their nature because they're eating some things that are so small. So it's not necessarily, we might automatically think that greed is bad, but sometimes, greed is necessary. I liked how Thich Nhat Hanh in the 5 mindfulness trainings talks about eating in the 5th precept. So when Upaya read the 5 mindfulness trainings this morning, the chant, the 5th one is called nourishment and healing. And when Sun Shin talked about that in his talk last week, he talked about, drugs and, how we should be careful about how do we utilize drugs and the kind of damage that can cause to our life. But food can also be a drug. Thich Nhat Hanh says that in that Gatha and that 5th mindfulness training, he says, I'm determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, and other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate inner being and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being for my body and consciousness and the collective body and consciousness from my family, my society, and the earth. And this idea is that, even though food is something we need, it can also be utilized in sort of a negative ways, just like a drug. We can use food to escape reality. The end of that mindfulness training talks about, the importance of eating mindfully so we can preserve well-being in the body and consciousness of the collective body and consciousness of ourselves, our family, society, and the earth. So the next line of the Meal Gatha also says, may we keep our compassion alive by eating in such a way as to reduce the suffering of living beings, preserve our planet, and reverse the process of global warming. So earlier I talked about how the food that's on our plate came from many places. It didn't just come from the store, it came from the field. And there were many different people involved in making that food available for us. So we should consider that. One of the things we consider when we're eating and what we're eating is the process. So one of the things we can think about is with eating animals. My daughter used to like to say that she didn't like to eat meat that still looked like the animal because that reminded her of what she's eating. I've heard other people say that they themselves can never kill, a cow or a pig or a chicken, but they're still, eating those products as long as someone else kills them for them. So if we can consider, the kind of suffering that other people might be, if we would suffer to do the activity, it makes sense that other people would suffer also to do that similar activity. So if we feel like we would suffer from killing the animals that we eat, if we think about the people who have to kill those animals, in order for them to be on our plate, we can consider that as a way of expanding our compassion. If we think about deciding to eat in ways that considers the kind of suffering that's caused by our food being prepped or how our food gets to our plate is another important thing to consider. Think about, those large factories where they produce chickens and cows and pigs. There's a certain amount of suffering involved in those types of processes because there's so many animals, so many limited spaces. But even if we go beyond that and we just go to animals that are maybe more locally farmed, and they have free range, they have a better quality of life, there's still another level of suffering going on. Well, of course, the animal is killed in order for it to eat it, but also the person who has to actually kill those animals over and over as part of their livelihood. If we're thinking about karma, the first mindful training is do not kill. So if we have a diet that requires other people to break that precept all the time, that's creating bad results for them and their life going forward, and we're a part of that as well. Thich Nhat Hanh also talks about using our diet to reverse the process of global warming. So I thought this was interesting. I had known, I think about carbon dioxide. We talk about food coming from far away, and that creates more carbon dioxide in the air. And then there's also this idea of methane. Animals produce methane. I really didn't know too much about that, so I had to look it up. And according to the UN, livestock emissions from manure and gastroenteric releases, which are like cow and pig farts, account for roughly 32% of human-caused methane emissions. Methane is significantly more potent than greenhouse gas, than carbon dioxide, with a global warming potential that is 28 to 36 times greater over a 100-year period and 84 to 87 times greater over a 20-year period. So not only is it the idea that the animals are being raised just to be killed, just the idea of raising these animals in such large amounts is creating consequences for our environment. So I'm going to talk about the last line here. We accept this food to nourish our personhood and strengthen our ideal of serving all beings. So despite the negative effects of eating, we're basically breaking the first precept because of not to kill, even if, we have to eat to survive. If we consider that plants are living beings, we have to eat plants to survive. There's no way around it. The Diamond Sutra states that we shouldn't discriminate between living and non-living, thinking and non-thinking, or even being and non-being. So everything that exists had this sort of same level of importance. We are interconnected with everything that exists, even though some of these things that exist we have to consume for ourselves to live. If we think about looking at our bodies at the atomic level, there is no wall between us and our environment. The same materials, the same chemicals, compositions that exist in the earth, the water, fire, and space, which is what Buddhism teaches traditionally is what's in a human being, exist out in the world as well. When we die, we become back part of the earth. If we're cremated, we become part of the smoke, and our ashes become part of the earth that much quicker. So the idea is that even that we have to eat. So how can we eat in ways that are going to nourish ourselves and also our environment? I was thinking about some of these things. Number one is to eat healthy. So that we nourish our body to keep our body healthy. Don't eat things that are bad for our body. To try and eat local, because when we eat local, things don't have to travel as far, and when they don't travel as far, it doesn't create as much greenhouse gas, and it also supports the people who live in our environment, our local environment, people that are closest to us. Eat less processed foods, simpler foods that don't use pesticides, organic foods. Those are all good things because pesticides and processed foods create problems for our environment. The pesticides basically kill other plants, not just the weeds, and really to discriminate between weeds and good plants, is another thing the Diamond Sutra would encourage us not to do. Eat more fruits and vegetables, because the less meat you eat, the less methane goes up into the atmosphere. So simple things. I'm sure there's many other things that you all could think of as well. I think it's a lot to try and change everything in your diet all at once. Probably impossible and not sustainable. Even myself, I eat vegan, but I mean, everything we buy is not local. Everything we buy is not organic. Often when I eat, I just consume it unmindfully without thinking about anything. And before I'm done, my wife's like, "I'm only half done. How come you're finished?" I'm ready to move on. So, I know I myself have lots of issues, lots of things I can improve upon in order to realize this aspiration. So if you do feel motivated to change your eating habits, it doesn't just have to be a Thanksgiving dinner, but it could just be with maybe one meal a week to start with. Just maybe identify the few of the aspirations that you could fit. Maybe you start out with just being mindful of what you're eating. You don't change anything at all, except for when you sit down, you think about how this food came to be, and then you take your time to actually eat it and enjoy it. And then you could build from there. The title of this talk is "This Food is a Gift." So what I've tried to show is that the gift is not only just the food, the gift is the opportunity that the mealtime has to help us develop our practice every day. Every day we have to eat. Most of us are probably eating 3 meals a day plus snacks. Every time we do that, we can stop and we can focus on our practice, and we can build our practice in many different ways at that time. So thank you. So I'd like to invite everyone to get into a comfortable sitting posture. We're going to do some meditation. So we've been sitting on these cushions for a bit. There are a few chairs over there. If you need to get up and sit in a chair now, there's some chairs in the back also. But if you're going to meditate on the floor, just try and sit. You can sit in a squatting position. I see some people sitting in the squatting position where you're kind of up on your knees and you just put the cushion behind your hips. That can be a good way to do it if you've been sitting with your legs crossed the whole time. Otherwise, if you're sitting on the floor, just try and cross your legs in front of you. You can take your left foot and put it up on your thigh, and your right foot on your left thigh. If you want to sit in the lotus position. Otherwise, you can just have your legs crossed in front of you. If you're sitting in a chair, having your feet flat on the floor and just trying to sit up nice and straight. Pull your shoulders up a little bit, relax, sit back a little bit. Bring your hands up against your abdomen. Put your right hand inside your left hand, thumbs lightly touching. Tuck your chin in, try and sit up nice and straight with your spine. You can have your eyes open or closed. If you're feeling drowsy, maybe having your eyes open. If you're feeling distracted, closing them or half shutting them, and just have a soft gaze looking down at the floor or at the person's back in front of you. And then just bring awareness to your breath. Awareness of the in-breath and the out-breath. We usually encourage people to count their breaths to start out with, so you can breathe in and breathe out. Count that as number 5. Breathe in, breathe out. Number 4, breathe in, breathe out. 3, all the way down to 1. And then when you get to 1, go back to 5. And if you get comfortable doing that, then just let go of the counting and just be aware of your breathing. And you can, if you're get comfortable with that. Just let go of the breathing and just be aware. And I will sound the bowl to start and to end. Can we bow? The next part of our service is joys and concerns. This is an opportunity for members of the Sangha to share joys in their life or concerns that they have. And it's an opportunity for us individually to participate in feeling the four immeasurables. So the four immeasurables are loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness is the, wishing others to be happy. Compassion is wishing others to be free from suffering. Joy, is just to share in the joy of others, that we don't have to be jealous of that joy. And equanimity is to be able to experience the highs and lows of life without being thrown off of our practice. Even though we're really excited and happy about something, doesn't mean we have to, stomp all over people. And if we're really upset and depressed, we can still maintain our equanimity and go through our life and need what needs to be done without falling into despair. So we're just trying to kind of cultivate that. And by listening to each other, and we recognize that we all want to be happy. We all want to avoid suffering, but there's causes and conditions that are happening in our life that we can't really avoid. So we just have to kind of deal with things as they come up. So if you'd like to share a joy or concern, just raise your hand. And when the mic comes to you, if you could introduce yourself as well, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello, Sangha. My name's Clara. I just really experiencing the joy of, friends and, new faces and old faces. I got to go across the country and visit one of my friends who I haven't seen in a long time this last week, and meet all of their friends at a Friendsgiving, and met a lot of people, and my heart felt seen in ways that I didn't think it could be. So, there's always new people out there to see, and thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lila, and I am happy that I got to have 3 play dates in a row this weekend.
All right. This time of year always brings, I think, joys and concerns for me. My joy this holiday season, or this Thanksgiving season, this week, is that my sister and nieces and nephews get to visit from Ohio. They're coming to our house to eat and spend time, and they have not been before. So that's exciting for me and joyful. My concern always is for people who don't get to make those friends and family connections. It can be a lonely time for some. So I also keep that in my heart and have concern for that.
Good morning. I have never done this, so instant regret as soon as I heard my voice. Sorry, my name's Taylor. So for a while, I've been at a crossroads in life. I don't know if I want to go back to school. I don't know if I want to find a new job. I don't know if I want to try to climb the ranks in my current job. And I was at home one night and I realized a need that isn't on the market. So I'm starting the prototype tonight and this week with my father, and we're going to try to build a business. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chase. I have a concern that kind of turned into a joy. It's very exciting. The restaurant in which I currently work, we found out recently, will be shutting down for a couple of months in the new year. Which is kind of a drag for all of us that work there and depend on it to pay our bills. But the joy is that I landed a temporary assignment back in my hometown, so I get to travel home to where it'll be very warm. So, sorry, suckers, I'm skipping winter this year. And I'm going to get to bartend through the high season, right? Because, in places that are warm, December and January and February are very exciting times to go. And get to hang out with my family and spend time with them, which I don't get to do as much as I want. So be thinking of me as I drive 13 hours down to Arkansas with my 2 cats. They're not going to like that. But yeah, very, very happy.
Hello, my name's David. Too close. I had a concern that turned into a joy. I've spent the last year working on my past and becoming a better person, and one of the things I had to do was confront my father about my childhood. And he stepped up, acknowledged everything, and we are working together on building a relationship, since I don't want to live with the anger and the pain anymore, and I know he doesn't either, and we're both trying. And I'm joyful for that, because I was terrified and I was hurt, and it was for nothing. I just had to have the strength and the personal belief to try, because I didn't want to live like that anymore. So thank you.
Hello, Sangha. My name is Denzel, and mine is pretty simple, but I've just been finding a lot of joy in movement recently and staying active.
Hi, this is Zoe, and my concern was I spent 2 years in really miserable marriage, and I finally ready to move on, and I'm really happy that I moved forward and be myself, and I made a good friend, and I start new work, and I have a really good boss and a coworker. I'm just really happy about this.
I'd like to share joy. My name's Kunga. Got my mic. My daughter Audrey, my older daughter, she has the job, but she was interviewing for some other jobs, and both jobs she interviewed for, they offered her. So she's kind of deciding whether she wants to move and then looking at those positions. So that's really exciting. And my other joy is that she lives in Philadelphia, and my sister lives in New Jersey, and my dad lives in Rhode Island, and they're all going to meet together in New Jersey for Thanksgiving. So it's nice for her and her husband to be able to be with my dad and my sister and her kids for Thanksgiving. My disappointment is that she doesn't get to home for Thanksgiving, and we used to do, like 3 years ago, we would do these giant family Thanksgivings in South Bend where my mother-in-law lived. But my mother-in-law has passed on, and the family that lived in the area that we went down there, they've moved to Colorado, so it's just kind of sad. There's just me and my wife and my younger daughter and her boyfriend going to be doing Thanksgiving together. So it's a big change. Thank you. Do we have any online?
So we have Amy, and who says, I have joy. My 95-year-old grandma has been a bit down lately. She used to paint a lot, and that really brought her a lot of joy, but she's unable to do that now because of her arthritic hands and coordination. I was visiting with her the other day, and I found a paint number game on her iPad to see if she would like it, and she absolutely loved it. She can do it easily because it's just tapping on a screen, and she gets the same sense of joy by making a beautiful picture. And it was amazing seeing her light up again. So I'm very thankful for that.
Okay, if we don't have any more, we're going to go ahead and take a moment to bring those joys and concerns into our heart. All right, I have some announcements for November. We do have an online meditation group that meets on Wednesdays from 6 to 6:45. There's a link in the newsletter and on the website. We have a Thursday Dharma discussion group, meets on Thursday from 9:30 to 11 a.m. here at the temple. I just talked to Venerable Jingsu Ryan there if you're interested. Looks like the Buddhist Mutual Aid Sangha will meet again in December. Is that going to be the second Sunday in December? Okay, so second Sunday in December. The Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple Board meeting will meet again in December. Usually that's the third Sunday of the month, but I don't have the calendar. I'm not sure exactly. The 21st. Okay, so December 21st. If you're interested in observing how the board works here, you're invited to attend that. So that's here at the temple, and it's usually it's pretty close to after service ended. It's like 11:30. Okay. We're going to have a preceptor ordination next Sunday. So the preceptors are a group of 7 members of our temple. Can preceptors raise their hands? Okay. So these students have been coming to temple every Sunday to help clean and set up, attending lectures before service, meeting after service every other Sunday, reading the Dhammapada, the Heart of the Buddha's teachings, keeping a weekly journal on their meditation practice and also their spiritual practice in general. So it's pretty involved, very a lot of effort put into that. So they will be receiving the 5 precepts at an ordination ceremony next Sunday. So they will be getting Dharma names as also as part of that. So it's always exciting. And then there'll be a potluck after that. So if you're interested in helping celebrate that by bringing something to share, we invite you to do that as well. If you bring something to share, just bring like a little 3x5 card that says, the ingredients. So anybody who has any food allergies or anything can decide to look at that. And then the Bodhisattva training. So after the preceptor training, we have the Bodhisattva training. That's for anybody who's actually completed the precepts, either the precepts here at the temple or if you completed precepts someplace else, you're invited to to take that training. The training for the Bodhisattva class is much longer. Starts in January, goes through August, so it's like 8-month commitment. You're committing to a meeting once a month. You're committing to keeping a weekly journal. You're committed to reading text and coming to discussions about that. So it's a really great way to deepen your practice further after you've taken the precept class. We do have Buddhist-based recovery meetings here at the temple as well. Mondays, 6:30 meditation, 7 p.m. meeting at the temple. Wednesday, 6:30 at the Allen Club on College Avenue, 1020 College Avenue. Fridays, 10:05 meditation and 10:30 meeting here at the temple and also via Zoom. And you can contact Reverend Joyce and Sue Shane regarding that. If you need more information, you can also find more information about all these events in our newsletter and on our web page. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, I encourage you to do that. Are there any other announcements today?
My name is Nasanskara. I have an announcement about the Kaufman Institute Thanksgiving Interfaith Celebration, which is tomorrow at Park Church downtown. Park Church is across the street from St. Cecilia's, behind Veterans Memorial Circle, kind of right downtown. I wish I had a little bit more information on the location, like the address, but I don't. Also, where you can go for information, but I don't. I believe that if you are interested, you can Google Kaufman Institute. This will pull it up. But it is the Interfaith Thanksgiving celebration they do every year. It's a wonderful celebration where faith leaders from all around the area, from the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, Native American, Humanist, Buddhist, Muslim, and I've forgotten some, and I apologize. I'm sure there's many, many, all come together under one roof, give short presentations, talks. There's a kirtan that the Sikhs do that's an amazing thing to witness. Dancing, I know there was last year, singing, and then there'll be snacks afterwards. And it's a wonderful celebration, and it's a joyous thing to see. So that is at Park Church, downtown Grand Rapids, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Again, there's parking around and there's some information. Likely you can find this on the Kaufman Institute website. It's K-A-U-F-F-M-A-N probably, but okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bapji Kent. I serve on the board of directors in the secretary role, and I'd like to announce the results of our online survey to elect James Quinn as our newest board member. And so the vote was 29 yes and 0 no. So congratulations, James, and thank you. And thank you to everyone who voted.
And I do want to do a Dana announcement. So we have Dana boxes at both entrances at the temple, and the temple is completely run by donations. All the bills are paid from our donations. All the staff for Sunday service is all completely volunteer. The teachers aren't paid to provide services. The tech team isn't provided to provide the tech. It's being cleaned by the preceptors free. Everything is done based on generosity. So if you're able to be generous with your time, you can look in our newsletter. There's a place for the Dharma disciples, and you can email there if you're interested. And those are people who come and help set up, before service and help clean up after. You can put your name in there, and they add you to a list, and you can learn. They'll train you how to do everything you want to do, like the incense, that kind of thing during the service if you want to do that. So that's really a great way that you can volunteer your time. Also, you can just volunteer financial support. So, there's a PayPal, and there's also, you can just put checks or cash in the Dana boxes. So thanks so much for coming. You can always just volunteer by showing up. That's really huge, and we're really glad to have you here. Thank you. I'd like to have everyone stand up, and we'll do our closing gapas. And this is also in our chant book. Page 6.
Action ever committed by deeds and soul, on account of my being was free, anger, and ignorance, or whether my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the road of compassion, a formless field of benefaction, where the Buddhist teachings, whether they all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate, endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Narrow gates without number, I vow to enter. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain.
Invite the right side to face towards center, left side face towards center, and we'll bow to each other. And as you're leaving, if you could straighten your cushion up in the center, make sure your square cushion kind of in line with the other ones. Close your chant book up. You can take those gathas, meal gathas with you. Those are for you to take home if you want. Or if you're not going to take it home, just stick it in the back. And we do have social hour downstairs, so I invite you to join us for that if you'd like.